Abso-fragging-lutely, damn it.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if this is your first time. My name's Gareth. This is Book, Songs and Other Magic, and this is my February wrap-up. So what I normally do with my wrap-ups is I talk about the videos I made last month, and I talk about my reading, and I also give a little update about how many books I read this year according to my Goodreads count. And I've read 17 books this year so far, so that's quite a lot for me. We're only in, right at the beginning of the third month, but that's not a bad thing because I do hope to pause my reading at some point soon so I can write for a bit, so we'll see. But as far as the videos I've made, started off with the review of the next book in my banned book series, which is Heart of a Dog by Bulgakov, and that was a really interesting video to make because Bulgakov was making a big statement against the Russian Revolution, and it's something I'm really interested in anyway. So that was an interesting one to make. So there's quite a lot of Russian history in that video. So if you fancy that, then Heart of a Dog review went up. And then there was a February TBR. So quite early on I did a TBR, which I mentioned a few events that are happening in February, including the Filmtastic February, which I did take part in, which I'll get to in a minute when I get to the books. And then there had already been 3 previous videos from my library tour of my main shelves upstairs, and then my 4th video for those main shelves ones went up. And then there was the 10 most influential people in science fiction, which was a response video to something that Sean D. Stanfast did, which was just me kind of saying that time has gone on so far, and I think it makes sense that there would be people from the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s that would have had an influence by now. So I sort of wanted to talk about some of those people that could, just like a discussion point, you know, whether those people would have been seen as influential by you guys or not. And then I put out an original tag called Favourite People Tag and asked people to do it. And there's lots of people who have done it, actually. It's been quite a nice tag. So I'm going to make a playlist of the tag, and that went down really well, which is good. And I had a lot of fun doing it. I thought it was a really interesting one to do. And I've been really pleased watching other people doing the tag. Then I did a video on novelizations and kind of how that ties in with my childhood and scout camp and growing up, like my first sort of reading when I was growing up. So talked about novelizations, kind of praised it for a bit. And then I did my review of Animal Farm, which might be my favourite book review I've ever put up on this channel. I've put up quite a few book reviews, but that one I was particularly pleased with and felt like I was completely on top of the book, which is nice. So yeah, if you are interested in the book, check out the Animal Farm review. That was part of the Banned Books project. And then what appeared was the second part of my Twilight Zone investigation, exploration of all 156 episodes. So part 2 appeared. There's going to be one a month, so there's one coming up in March as well. But the second episode appeared on that at that point, which is great. I'm absolutely loving doing them, by the way. Really loving doing those videos. So I hope you guys are enjoying watching them. And then there was a few library tour things. So there was my Richard Matheson books as part of the library tour series. And then there was 2 videos which were basically sci-fi boxes that I've got near my bed. So I went through those boxes as well as part of the library tour. And then I did another banned books review, and this one was of 1984. So I talked about 1984 in this video, and again, lots and lots to talk about with this book. So a really, really important book, and yeah, I enjoyed doing that video a lot. Then I did Panic Poetry. I've actually done 2 Panic Poetry videos this month. So there was 2 poetry videos put up in honor of PAX. And then there was the Stephen King books, again, part of my library tour. I've got 61 books by Stephen King. So all those 61 books I quickly talked about in the video. It's not too long a video considering there's so many books, but I've got them all out and talked about them, which ones I've read, which ones I hadn't read. There is going to be a project coming up on the channel in couple of months' time, so look out for that. But in the meantime, I went through those Stephen King books. Then there was a James Taylor cover by me and Richie. So we put up You Can Close Your Eyes, which is a great song, and we put up our version of that. And then I put up a video called Humble Tips for Growing Your Channel. So that was literally just me suggesting ways that you could do things to help your channel get more noticed or be part of a network or community, that kind of thing. So did that one. And then I did a video that was bouncing off a video that Murphy Napier did. I couldn't resist it. I was going to do this video anyway, and that made me think, oh yeah, I'll do it now. Because, you know, I could have procrastinated on that one for a while, but I did it. It was a video about blurbs. So it was quite fun doing it. I got lots of books out, and I just went through the blurbs on the cover. And I also talked about this book, which I actually reread a lot of it for the video I was doing because I couldn't resist it. So the first chapter was the one that was relevant to the book blurbs, but I ended up reading more of it just because I can't resist it because I love this book. So yeah, this is one of my oldest possessions actually. So yeah, that was nice rereading that again. So that is kind of part of my monthly reading, but I didn't read the whole book again, but I did read a lot of it again. So Ghastly Beyond Belief, Neil Diamond, that was in that video on blurbs. And then I did an unboxing video, my first ever unboxing video, and that was of this really crazy heavy book. This is so heavy. I don't know if I don't know if it's obvious in the video. It probably isn't, but it's so heavy. Oh my god! And that's this massive tome of the New Yorker Encyclopedia of Cartoons. So I did that unboxing video. Put that down. Which was great. I really enjoyed opening up and sharing it with you guys, and I really love the fact I've got that. It's an important part of my cartoonist collection, which, if you've seen the other videos in my library tool, I have got a lot of cartoonist books. I love them very much. And then I did a March TBR, which was the third time I'd filmed it, and it was because I kept putting loads and loads of books in this TBR. That wasn't really giving me much wiggle room for just choosing books on the fly. So I took all of that out and just did the bare minimum of obligation books, if you like, books that are part of projects or events, and then gave myself a bit of freedom to choose some stuff. So that was what the March TBR video was about. And then I did a video, much more serious video for this channel, and a video that I hope landed okay. And that was a video about teenage suicide, bouncing off the end of Watch, which it was one of the books I finished this month, and it's a theme. I think you can call it a theme in that book. So I wanted to talk about that in the video. So there's a much more serious video there on that front. And then to finish off the videos that have appeared on my channel before this one, I did a video with my author hat on and announced that my story Itch had been accepted into the Garbology anthology. So I wanted to share that wonderful news with you guys. Thank the two people that are editing it. And I actually did a longer video where I didn't just do that. I also went through the other things that I've published and other things that I've written, just as a little overview. So that was quite cool to do. So I enjoyed doing that. So those were the videos for this month. So what did I read? So Animal Farm, I read this in the tail end of last month, but it was definitely after I'd filmed the wrap-up. So technically you could argue that it wasn't really in February, but it's after the last wrap-up. So this was a wonderful thing to read again, and I really enjoyed thinking about how to do the video and doing the video, and I would definitely recommend it if you're interested. Animal Farm, George Orwell, absolute classic, an amazing book. So then, the first kind of proper February book was based around the Filmtastic February event, and I read the novelisation of The Force Awakens, which was fine. I didn't love it. I do really like the film, by the way, so lots of people slag off the film. I really love the film. And the book was fine. There was some extra bits in it, but not particularly revelationary bits. It was all right. Yeah, I read it. It was a little bit functional for me, but it's fine. So a little bit of a mediocre way of beginning the month. And then I read Hollywood by Charles Bukowski. Again, this was in aid of the Filmtastic February event. And I've got to say, it's going to be an interesting thing when I properly dive into Charles Bukowski again, which I'm not going to do until the end of the year. But when I do that, I'm really intrigued to know if my relationship with him has changed, because the last time I reread something by him, I reread Women, and I didn't enjoy it. And I didn't enjoy this much either. And this was a reread, and I remember liking it more when I was younger. And again, I just didn't find... When I read Bukowski, I expect to find these really choice lines that are just beautifully written. You go, that's nice, amongst all the cynicism and negativity and the nastiness and all that. I expect, you see these lines that just, wow, that says so much, that line. And I wasn't really getting a lot of that here, and it just felt a little bit like, oh, is that really what I was, is that Bukowski? So I don't know. What's intrigued me is wondering if it doesn't align with me anymore. I don't know. It'd be a bit weird, because I've always held him in high esteem, and I've got quite a big collection of his stuff. So yeah, but I wasn't particularly impressed with this one, Hollywood. This is about him writing about his experience writing a screenplay. So yeah, and then I did read a book I liked. So Why I Write by George Orwell. I really like this. It's a very short book, but it's really interesting. Every line is interesting, and it's his opinions about all sorts of things. So the reason, what drives him to write, hence the title, but also his ideas about socialism, his ideas about England, his ideas about imperialism, the new century that was unfolding, and his role as a writer amongst that. It's really, really interesting. So yeah, I like this book. I thought it was really good, and I'm really enjoying the whole George Orwell exploration I'm having at the moment. Okay, so I finally finished The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, and this is really good. It's really, really good. If you are interested in prehistory, if you're interested in prehistory before man and these fascinating creatures that walked the earth before we were around, it's really well written. It really pulls you in. It reads like a story sometimes, but there's so much detail in there, and you do learn a lot. So if you are interested, I definitely recommend this. I thought it was really, really good. So this was read as part of the Historathon, because I don't remember if it happened last year, but this year, I think it probably did happen last year as well, but certainly this year, prehistory is included, and the first quarter is from the prehistory period to the year 500 AD. So that's why I was reading that, as it was a nice bit of... It was a book that had been celebrated in that period, so about that period. So it made me think, I'll read this, because it sounds really good, and it really was. It definitely deserves its reputation. Really well written, really easy to digest, and it rattles along at a nice pace, and you just learn a lot. It's just really, really good. Details, really full in it. So The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, really good. Then I read a book that I bought last... when was it? When we did this big London meetup. Pandemonium by Armando Iannucci. So I've had it for almost a year, or just over a year, and I really didn't like it. I found it really difficult to read, as in not difficult to understand, but difficult to motivate myself to read it. I really like him. I think his writing's fantastic, and I thought this would be funny, but it felt really pretentious. I hate that word, pretentious, but it felt like that, and it felt so out of alignment to what I would want to read. It's just full of over colourful, over elaborate jokes. It's just not very good. So I really didn't like it. I was gutted, because I like Armando Iannucci a lot. So yeah, didn't like that one. And then the Wasted Weekend crops up, which is the kind of reminder about Garb August. So in the gap, the sort of halfway gap between the two Garb August last year and this year, we've got the Wasted Weekend. So it was a weekend in February where we read trash. And I did a voting thing on my community tab to see what people wanted me to read. And they chose Sean Hudson's Relics. So I read Sean Hudson's Relics. And my first Sean Hudson book, it's quite nasty. It's quite ugly and cynical horror, which is fair enough, is what I expected. But I wasn't really pulled in with the way it was written. It was a little bit, and then that happened, and then that happened. There wasn't a lot of charm in it. And bizarrely, it felt like I was more impressed with Richard Lehman, which is the weirdest thing to say ever. Richard Lehman is the basest form of horror, but there is a charm to it, or at least there's something about it that keeps you reading. Whereas this, it felt like I had to keep making myself read it as it was something that I'd said I was going to read for the Wasted Weekend, but I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't find it that interesting. So yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment. Relics by Sean Hudson. And then, and by the way, I had to stop reading this to read the Wasted Weekend book. So because it was a specific weekend we were supposed to read it, I had to stop reading this, which I had started. So I haven't gone back to this yet, but I read the first few pages and it looked really good. I was really getting into it and then realised, oh my God, I have to put this aside and not read this. But Ethan Hawke's Ash Wednesday, I was really enjoying it. So I'm going to try and pick this up again this month and hopefully get to the end and go, yay, that was really good. Because it certainly felt like I was going to really enjoy it. So that was Ash Wednesday. Started but not finished. And then the last book that I finished in, the last book I actually finished in the month was Stephen King's End of Watch. So as I said, I did a video in the end that bounces off this book. It's not really a video about the book that much. I don't say that much about the book, but it's about one of the threads in the book. And I really like this. I thought it was really good. And I was part of the discussion about this book as well, and the other two books in the series. This is part of an ongoing project called All About Holly, where we read all of the books that Stephen King wrote that feature the character Holly Gibney, which goes back to when last year he released a book called Holly, which was like, all about Holly. But she does feature in 5 other books before that, and this is the third one, End of Watch, third part of a trilogy, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. You got to suspend your disbelief more in this one than you do with the other two, but it was a thrill ride, and it was really deep in some places, really difficult to read in some places, and as I do say in that video about it, the author's note in this book is really good and really makes it a lot more resonant as well. So those are the books I finished, but I did start the next Ray Bradbury book. So that's The Illustrated Man. I did start that this month. So I will be finishing that this month, and you will see a video about The Illustrated Man to go with my other videos about Ray Bradbury. So I'm doing a deep dive and tackling every book as much as I can in chronological order. So that will appear on the channel, and I'm looking forward to doing a video on The Illustrated Man, which is my first book I ever read by him when I was a teenager. And I'm going to finish this one this month as well, which is really cool. It's a really good book, actually. Again, lots of detail. You learn a hell of a lot from it, and it's written in a very readable way. So it deserves its reputation. This has got a really big reputation for Roman history, and it's definitely, Mary Beard does definitely know how to tell the story of ancient Rome in a very well conceived way. And I actually did also finish The Winter of Windom, because obviously the end of February is the end of winter, and I finished with a short story collection, which I just put up here because I can't find it. So this is the short story collection that I finished, and it was fine. Disappointed in a way, but I think it's interesting that he seems to be much better at longer fiction, like novels, than he is at short fiction. And usually most of my favourite authors are just good at both. But I think John Wyndham's definitely better at novels. So there we go. That's how I finished The Winter of Windom. And then a couple of other things to mention. So I did tentatively started this, but I didn't get very far in it, and I know I'm going to like this. So I don't know if you know about this book, God and Anatomy, but this is a book about faith and about the way that we've defined God and different aspects of that definition, that character, historically, and it's really good. So yeah, I haven't got that far with it, but yeah, it's very I'm really impressed with it. So God and Anatomy there. And then just a little side comment that I did, as I said earlier, I did my library tour video about Richard Matheson, and since then I've got Somewhere in Time, which I didn't include in that video, but I've got Somewhere in Time by Richard Matheson, and I also bought this, which is Now You See It. So it's a novel about a magician, and it looks really cool, and so I really like the size as well. It's really nice. It's really, I could stick that in my coat when I go downtown and read it while I'm on the bus. It's a really nice dinky book. I like dinky books. So yeah, Now You See It, Richard Matheson, another one that goes to my collection. I'm going to try and get every single book he's released as much as I can before I do a deep dive on him, which I'll be doing after I finish Ray Bradbury. So I've got until I've finished Ray Bradbury to get everything, but I've got a lot. But I won't finish my Ray Bradbury one for ages because there's quite a lot to read. But I want to go to Richard Matheson after that on the channel. That's the plan. So as well as that, I had another Desert Island Flicks with Nick from another BookTube channel, which was awesome. And me and Dave are rattling along with our Is This Thing On fortnightly live stream. So if you haven't caught that, I definitely would check that out. We always get a guest on. It's always a good laugh. And something I'm really, really loving doing. So thanks for all the support on the live stream if you do tune in. And that's it. That was February. Let me know if you have an opinion about any of those books. Next month's going to be a little bit freer, but I will be finishing the Historathon first quarter books soon. And thanks again for watching. Stay curious, everybody.